His nightmare, a nocturnal vacation, unnecessary sedation. Life is just a dream here, right at home here. Welcome to his breakdown. I hope he doesn't scare you, because he's the king of your kind, whatever kind of mutant you are. All hail Alice Cooper.
It's Alice Cooper here with you just one day before the end of 2010. While you're partying in the street with millions of people rolling around in the vomit, I'll be here in Hawaii having a nice, relaxing night. And tonight is special because each hour of the radio show will be co-hosted by a different member of the original Hall of Fame inducted Alice Cooper group. And the amazing Steve Hunter will be sitting in for my late great guitarist, Glen Buxton. Glen is celebrating his induction into heaven tonight, which is probably even harder to get into than the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I'll have This Day in Rock in a few, but now here's something pretty appropriate. Get it? Elected. Patti Smith with Because the Night. Today is Patti's 64th birthday, so a big happy birthday to her. More congratulations to Patti for winning the National Book Award for Nonfiction with her book Just Kids, But Her Life with artist Robert Mapplethorpe. Patti, I knew Patti back in New York, and she told me her very favorite song was Desperado. That was the song, she says, that was very near and dear to her. I won't tell you in what sense because it gets a little bit, well, never mind. Anyway, it's time for a quick break so I can get a piece of birthday cake from Patti, who is also a sister in the Hall of Fame, by the way. And I'll be right back with This Day in Rock.
School's not out, and Alice Cooper is your professor of rock and roll. Fill us in, Alice.
This Day in Rock, 11 years ago today, December 30th, 1999, George Harrison is stabbed several times after he and his wife, Olivia, are attacked by an intruder in their home outside of London. The Harrisons manage to subdue the attacker, and George later recovers from his stab wounds. It's so weird to think of a guy breaking into George Harrison's house and stabbing George Harrison. If I broke in, didn't know whose house it was, and I saw George Harrison, I'd get an autograph. And I'd say, okay, arrest me, but I want an autograph first, okay? The last thing I would think to do would be to stab George Harrison. Come on. And it's just such a weird concept of stabbing a Beatle is not good. Because that just can't, in your next life, that's really bad. While my guitar gently weeps, George Harrison. That was Stone Free by Jimi Hendrix. Okay, Neil, Hendrix, you know, and I think we probably sat in a room listening to Axis Bolded Love and all the Hendrix stuff a million times when we were living together, you know, when the band was living together in Connecticut and all over the place, then L.A. and everything. And it was always one of those things where you always sat there and said, how does that guy learn to play guitar like that?
Jimmy was, I think, not only the most unique guitar players, but influenced a whole generation of guitar players as well.
Even the great guitar players were going to hear him play. I mean, the Townsends and the Claptons and the Pages and the Becks were going down. Hey, I heard about this guy. You know, they're supposed to really be and they would walk away going, what?
Well, they couldn't figure out what he was doing.
Yeah, upside down and backwards.
They play guitar their whole life, and they see this guy that rewrote the book on how to play guitar.
Yeah, everybody loved him. But I do have I have a great trivia question for you, since you're a Hendrix guy. What three R&B greats did Jimmy play backup guitar for in the 60s?
Well, Little Richard.
Yes.
I think was one of them. Curtis Knight, I think, was one of them.
Yeah, or King Curtis. I'll give you
Curtis
that.
Knight. Well, Otis Knight in the Days. Okay.
And?
No. The Isley Brothers.
Isley Brothers, you're right. And there's one more that people don't have on here.
Yeah, and
that's Joey D and the Starlighters. Peppermint Twist.
Yeah, I do remember talking or hearing about that.
That's right. He played in the Village with Joey D and the Starlighters when he was just a kid.
And I actually had that album. I bought that album.
Is that something?
Yeah, Peppermint Twist. Are you kidding me?
He was in the background doing the steps with the guys and everything like that. When Hendrix became an international superstar in '67, it seemed as if he just dropped out of a Martian spaceship. But in fact, he'd served his apprenticeship in a number of R&B acts on the circuit, and he was already a professional musician out there. You know, I mean, it wasn't like new to him to be on stage. You know,
no, he'd been professional on stage for years.
What did Mitch Mitchell weigh? 60 pounds?
You know, if he's soaking wet.
Yeah, Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding could both have been in Lord of the Rings.
Their hair was heavier than they were.
I'm not kidding you. These guys were like hobbits.
They were actually elves or hobbits.
they were that small. Yeah. You know, I was afraid if you pat him on the back, you'd break him in half. But if you remember, Mr. Buxton played everything on the snare. He did all of his fills and everything on the snare.
He was an amazing craftsman.
Yeah, really a good kind of a jazz.
One of my
drummer.
influences, that's for sure. Well, if you were dropped out of a Martian spaceship, and who hasn't been, email both of us at neil@nightswithalice.com. Stick around a while, and Alice and I will do this managerial stuff for you.
More Alice Cooper coming up next.
KLPX. I'll be right back with more of the show.
Hope you're back from the bathroom, because if you're not, Alice knows where you live, and here he is.
Well, Alice Cooper and Neil Smith here, finishing off the 2010 install. You know, I got one of the things I always tell, the story I always tell, Neil, is about how we would do a lot of shows with The Who at the East Town of the Grandy.
Yeah.
And The Who's equipment would be set up, and we'd be set up, and we'd finishing our set right before The Who, and Keith would always jump on the drums during the end. So it would be like
Juju.
You had 38 drums, and he had 37. Because Neil would find out how many drums Keith had, and then he would say, "I've got one more." And then Keith would have to add
10 more.
Yeah. So they would play together. There'd be 65 drums going at the same time. But that's really a true story. I mean, Keith
Black Juju.
He used to sit in with us all the time. He'd come in and just start playing.
And he played it perfect, too.
Yeah, it was like he was in the band. Well, you know, if you would have asked me back in 1970 where I was going to be in 2010, I would have said I'd probably be in my time machine, or I would be on my flying car, or something like that.
Absolutely. Well, flying car was without a doubt.
You know where we are? We're in a dungeon rehearsing, just like we were
back in the day. Nothing's changed. Of course, the shelf life of a drummer back then wasn't too long, if you recall.
You're right.
So I didn't think I was going to make it to 1980.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, you know,
1984.
I tried to end Neil's career with a bullet in 1965.
That's a really good idea to remind me about that too, Alice. By the way,
it's a long story.
Have a drink of this water, right?
But you know, every time it gets a little cold outside, ankle hurt a little bit.
I can predict the weather actually better than the weatherman for the most part.
Okay, enough senility. Here's a song from Priest about what we'll be doing tomorrow night, living after midnight.
Hallowed be my name, Alice Cooper.
That was written by you, Neil, and the original Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted Alice Cooper group. But Neil brought that song in. Totally wrote pretty much that whole song by himself. And
yeah, that was pretty. The version that we did on Love It to Death was pretty much the original version that I wrote lyrically as well. Remember, I tried to sing the song, and that's when it got scary.
Yeah.
So
and you know the old joke. The last thing a drummer says before he gets thrown out of the band is, "Hey guys, I got this song I want you to hear."
You didn't mind the chorus on "School's Out," though, right?
No, I didn't mind that. But I mean, Neil brought this song in, and it was absolutely perfect for "Love It to Death." It was just that perfect. Yeah. It was fit in there really, really nicely with everything else. And Bob was very, very particular about songs. You know, he wouldn't just let us put a song in. We probably threw 5 songs off to get that song.
I sang the lead solo for Glenn, and he played it exactly like I heard it, and he did it. He did a dynamite job with it.
You know, Glenn was one of those guitar players that had moments of absolute brilliance. There were times when he would play a lead where I would turn around and go, "What? Where did that come from?" You know, where he would literally be as good as any human being on this planet on guitar. And then other times he was just off in another world.
Well, I think when we had I'm 18 off of Love It to Death was a hit. Killer, of course, with Under My Wheels, and it didn't go up the charts quite as much. It's a phenomenal song, just didn't quite chart as well as I'm 18. And although Killer, the album, sold more, it was our first platinum album.
Killer was actually the 5th biggest selling record of that year.
Yeah, and it went platinum for us, our first platinum album.
Yeah.
But we wanted that next single, and then of course Glenn came through, and I always had a feeling to really put the song over the top with "School's Out," the intro to "School's Out," and I still get chills thinking about it when we finally came up with that intro on it, because it was just it's like the intro on $1 Billion Babies. I mean, it's the perfect intro for the perfect song. So
well, and not only that, but if you really think about it, the song was about bratty kids in school. And what was the guitar doing?
It was pretty bratty.
It was Glenn at his brattiest.
Yeah.
And Glenn was truly a brat.
And he had a cigarette in his between his lips and a switchblade in his pocket.
At all times. An open can of something with alcohol in it.
I think Michael Bruce still has stitches, doesn't he?
Yeah, probably does. All right, we'll take a hallowed break right now.
Nights with Alice Cooper will be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail with a side of mint jelly. 96.1.
It's time for Alice Cooper to mispronounce your name and make fun of your spelling. It's email time on Nights with Alice Cooper.
Email time. Hey, Alice. I am on the road a lot, trying to earn a living buying and selling at flea markets. I came across a pretty awesome poster of Frank Zappa. It is from 1969, and it is in near mint condition. It shows Frank on the toilet, and on top of it, it says Phi Zappa Crappa. I am wondering if you would like to buy this item. We all know how much you love Zappa. I'm sure it would look great in your toxic hellhole. Would you be kind enough to play Joe's Garage for me, Danny Krause? Unfortunately, that's a very popular poster. Everybody has that poster. It's not a one-of-a-kind at all. We do have it in the studio as I'm looking at it right now, okay? So it's really not that rare, to be honest with you, Danny Krause. Memories of Zappa for you, Neil.
Well, I mean, the obvious one, when we played and the Cheetah Pier and he was there, and that was when we cleared everybody out. Shep Gordon was there, of course, and Frank was there, and some of the GTOs. The other one, which we all is our favorite story, is waking him up in the morning at his house when we
7 in the morning.
Yeah, 7 in the morning when we were told at 7 in the. Who did that, by the way?
Me. He said 7 o'clock, and I just was over anxious, and I went 7. Well, that means 7.
Yeah.
So we were there in full silver.
That was the last time he took care of our booking schedule.
Yeah,
right there.
That was. We were a little excited about playing for Frank, you know.
Oh, well, hey, it was Zappa, man. That was cool.
Yeah, it didn't really, 7 at night. I figured Frank was up all night recording, and
I don't know about Frank, but we were.
I know.
We used to go to bed at 7 in the morning.
I don't even think we went to bed that night. We did a gig the night before. I think we just showed up in our clothes, in our stage clothes.
That's the glaze in our eyes.
But Frank was great. Frank was the guy that really gave us our first shot, and I give him all the credit in the world. You know, when he was in the studio, I always tell these guys. One of my favorite stories is we played him the songs "Pretty's for You," and he looked at me and he goes, "I don't get it." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "It doesn't make any sense. These songs don't."
And it's Frank Zappa. He's supposed to get it.
And I said, "Well, that's good, isn't it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He says, "I'm going to record you." He said, "But I just don't get it. These songs don't make any sense." I said,
a compliment.
When you can confound Frank Zappa, then you have made your mark.
That's good.
All right, so we're going to play Joe's Garage for you because you want to hear it and because you have a worthless poster.
Well, that was Twisted Sister with "We're Not Gonna Take It." I hear that often myself these days. This is the original Alice Cooper drummer, Neil Smith, here in the studio with your host, Alice Cooper. I guess my hour with Nights with my good friend, Alice Cooper.
You said that kind of weird, good friend. Did you hear how I said that, good friend? It had a little chill in it, didn't it?
With my good friend that shot me, Alice Cooper, coming to an end. But not before I tell you about my upcoming Killsmith album.
So when are you done with that album now? Is it all through?
Yeah, I just dumped everything down digitally. I have 12 tracks on it. And the beginning of the new year, I will start mixing it, and in about a month or so, it'll be ready.
Okay, good. Well, when you get it done, let me know.
Yeah.
We'll pick out the song you want us to play.
It's you're going to have a lot that are radio friendly this time.
Good, good. That's because we like that. And no, I don't think you should take the show over from me. Okay.
Come on, let me take it over. Right?
No, you.
Well, if you think I should take it over for you, I'll email.
Be careful what you wish for. Okay.
I've heard that before somewhere. I don't know. You're listening to Neil Smith and Alice Cooper on Nights with Alice Cooper.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame style radio for mere mutants like you.
1 part Seagrams, 1 part mutant, and 2 parts female attorney. You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper.
Kid Rock's cover Bad Companies Feel Like Making Lunch. Oh, it's making love, I get it. On tonight's Cooper's Covers, I'm here with the original Alice Cooper group bassist and maybe one of the most copied bassists in the business. A lot of bass players that I talk to on the road always go, did Dennis really play like that? And, did he play like that on stage? And I went, yeah, Dennis was maybe the most original bass player around. That's really true. I mean, I think Tim Bogart learned a lot from you.
You think so, really?
Yeah, I think.
I saw him recently, and I didn't notice any licks there.
Well, I mean, it's the way he played. He was, he was all over that stage with Vanilla Fudge and kind of moving all over the place. And Dennis was the first guy I ever saw do that. Most bass players were like Bill Wyman. They just could have stood in one place and just kind of played.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a compliment. Tim Bogert is a great bassist, but the last time I saw him, he was sitting on a stool.
Ah, see? And you're not. You're still rocking it
I
out.
did sit in a wheelchair once. Remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And then at the end of the show, you came over and put your hands on my head and healed me, so I got up and walked.
Wow, I just remembered that. That is something. And we won't go into the story of driving from Detroit to Chicago and stopping for cherries. And
No,
okay, we won't go into that story at all.
That's Chicago. We're supposed to tell a story about Detroit.
That's right. Stay tuned for more great Rock Kids and Alice Cooper gossip right after this.
Nights with Alice Cooper. He's survived the guillotine, hanging, the electric chair, and disco. Now here he is, your favorite survivor, Alice Cooper.
It's Dennis Dunaway, bassist from the original Alice Cooper group, here on the last Thursday night of 2010. Tonight you're being treated to an hour with each of the surviving original Alice Cooper band members and the amazing guitarist Steve Hunter, who's also been recording with us all. It's really great.
He was really, I mean, Glenn can't be here, even though I know Glenn is here somewhere. But if you're going to replace Glenn with somebody, Steve Hunter's the perfect guy.
Yeah, I think Glenn's out trying to rob the vending machine right now.
Probably, yes. I wouldn't doubt that one bit. He's trying to do something illegal. But when I think of Steve Hunter and Glenn, they even look alike a little bit.
Yeah.
Put a blonde wig on Steve Hunter, and who is he? He's Glen Buxton. All you need is a big red nose. Glenn was the amazing thing about Glenn is that, when I say somebody was, he's like he was a greaser, or he was a this, or he was a that. When I say that Glenn was a Bowery boy, I'm not exaggerating at all. He was really could have been Muggsy or any of those.
Muggsy, yeah.
He talked like that for real. He had his own style of everything. He had his own set of sarcasm that he knew everything about television.
Well, one of Glenn's favorite days in Hollywood, when we were walking down the street and the opposite side of the street came the real Leo Gorcey.
Leo Gorcey with the hat on.
His hat on.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, Leo, how you doing? And he said, hiya, boys, and shoved his hat forward and kept going. Glenn always said that was his favorite celebrity moment. Sighting.
And the other one was Neil and Glenn and Dennis and I used to walk down Hollywood Boulevard early in the morning. We lived at the Landmark Hotel. And we get up in the morning and walk down Hollywood Boulevard and we go to Tad's or Tops, Try Our Fine Foods, because it was $1.25 for steak and eggs. And I don't know what kind of
we had a hard time scraping up.
Yeah, that was not that easy scraping up that kind of money. But we're walking down one time and I stopped both of them and I said, the bus bench right there, who is that? And it was Larry Fine from the Three Stooges. And it was like, hey, you can't say that about him. Come on. And we went up and we went, Larry. And he goes, just wait for a bus. That's what I'm doing here, And we're honestly, it would have been like seeing Clark Gable. For us, seeing Larry Fine was like bigger than seeing Jimmy Stewart or...
Right, you can't get more impressed than that.
I mean, because it was one of the Three Stooges. But really, one of the real Three Stooges. You can't fake that at all,
Did you hit him?
I should have gone and go, why I ought to finish this sentence. Anyways, back to Dennis. You have been doing a lot of recording, and I know we play Subway here on the show. In fact, a song on the new album is almost a derivative. Runaway Train is kind of the same feel as Subway.
It's got it's got that excitement.
Yeah, it does. First time I heard Subway, out of all the songs, I went, that's Dennis right there.
And it's got our roots. Really.
Yeah, definitely. It has that. Well, Exit Train Kept a Rolling type of drum thing in it.
Roots, which is our roots.
Yeah, and I want to play that right now, Subway, and then I wish we could play Runaway Train because you would hear the coordination between the two songs. But here's Subway from the Dennis Dunaway Project.
You want fun? You want freaky? You want facts?
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Here's Alice Cooper.
Freaky Facts. Okay, Alice Cooper here, and I'm going to turn over tonight's Freaky Facts to the one and only Dennis Dunaway. Nobody has ever done Freaky Facts in my presence before. This is quite an honor.
Oh, thanks. The honor's mine. Tonight's Freaky Facts will be about a band we all love, Led Zeppelin. Here we go. It was Keith Moon who inspired the Led Zeppelin name. The A was left out of the Led so that Americans wouldn't mispronounce the name. James Patrick Page is the oldest member of the band. Robert Anthony Plant is the youngest. Led Zeppelin's manager, Peter Grant, was a wrestler before he managed the band. In Through the Outdoor was recorded at ABBA's studio in Stockholm.
And you can tell that ABBA influence on that album.
Oh, yeah, ABBA all the way,
All the way.
especially the way they dress.
Yeah.
The 40 shots of vodka which killed John Bonham on September 25th, 1980 equals more than 2-liter bottle.
Okay, now wait. Now we used to drink, but we couldn't drink like that. That was crazy drinking. That was Viking drunk right there.
That was 2 liters. I can't even pick that much up.
No, I can't
let alone
either.
tip the bottle. And finally, the title of the song Black Dog was inspired by a stray Labrador, wait a minute, that wandered in and out of the Headley Grange studio where the band was recording Led Zeppelin 4 at the time.
I guess I could believe that. You know, that's as good as any reason for any song.
Well,
you know.
Black Juju was after a black Labrador.
That's right.
That's what I'm getting at. I think they copied us.
You're right. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Damn
wait a
Led
minute.
Zeppelin. Wait a minute. Remember when we wrote Whole Lotta Love?
Yeah.
And Stairway to Heaven?
It was about a cat.
Yeah. I hate it when they do that.
Anyway, here's Black Dog.
It's BOC with Burnin' For You, and I'm here with Dennis Dunaway from the original Alice Cooper group. Dennis, tell me about your current musical project, and also, are you ever going to play with Joe Bouchard, Blue Oyster Cult again? I know you did some shows with us on the last tour.
Yes, we did. We opened for you on a very unusual night. You had to call an indoor show because of rain. Remember that?
Yes, that's right.
It was the theater, because of your smoke. The theater had vents in the ceiling. Whenever there was smoke, these big vents would open to let the smoke out.
Automatically.
It was raining cats and dogs.
Yes.
To get back to that subject.
We were there on stage, and all of a sudden it starts raining on stage, and we're indoors, and we're getting soaked, and I'm going, how is it raining inside? The vents open automatically. Our smoke machines went off, set off the alarm, and the vents.
Then after that, the electricity went off on stage,
Right.
not in the theater. So the lights were on in the theater, but everything went quiet on stage.
Yeah.
And you were inside of one of your props.
That's right.
With just your head sticking out.
I was in the spiker, in the Iron Maiden
Yeah,
thing where they
and
put
you were
the
saying to the nurse, kill me.
I was going, you're standing up there. And I said, I'm not going to stay in this for a half an hour while they fix the thing. I kept looking at her and go, do it! Just do it! And finally she runs and just, because I knew after that they'd have to roll me off stage.
So Neil Smith was there that night, and you asked us how we liked the show, and we said, well, we both missed some of it because Neil was up on the roof prying open the vents, and I was pulling the master cord.
Not that they would ever sabotage my show. Not at all. Dennis Dunaway, Dennis at Nights with AliceCooper.com. That's him. What's the name of the band? Is it
Blue Coop.
Okay,
With
Blue Coop.
Joe and Albert Bouchard, his
Yep.
brother. Both,
okay.
Both from the original Blue Oyster Cult. And the album's called Tornado on the Tracks. You can look it up at bluecoopband.com. Robbie Krieger plays on it.
Oh, great. Oh,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's so wonderful to work with him.
Yeah,
again.
Robbie's great. He's so unique because he plays different than anybody else.
He does. He
Yeah.
plays jazz, and he plays, and I didn't realize until I saw him recently how much jazz influences in the Doors music.
Yeah, oh yeah. Same with the drums. John Densmore was a jazz drummer. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a pure jazz drummer.
And so was Ray.
Yeah, so I mean, there was an awful lot of jazz going on, and I think that's why Paul Rothchild. If you think of the bands that Paul Rothchild worked with,
Butterfield.
Love, Butterfield, and the Doors, they were all had a jazzy influence.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
Clear Light, remember Clear Light?
Yep.
That was another band that
Doug
had a
Lubon,
weird.
who played bass with the Doors.
That's right. He was the actual studio player.
The unsung hero.
Yeah, that's right.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper with me, Dennis Dunaway, and the rest of the original Alice Cooper group. Yes, you're right. It is legendary.
There's only one. Nights with Alice Cooper. 96. Sun goes down, you come alive. Others, the fearful, the weak, cower behind locked doors. But not you. Still, even the most hardcore among us can use a little help navigating the nighttime world. And that's where he comes in. He's your tour guide to the dark side. Here to hold your black-gloved hand. It's the man behind the makeup, Alice Cooper.
Hey there, it's Alice Cooper here with Mike Bruce from the original Alice Cooper group. Today is Thursday, December 30th. Mike, good to see you.
Hello, Arizona and the world.
Yes,
good to see you,
and
Alice.
North High Mustangs.
Good to see you again, Alice Cooper.
Good to see. I was in a movie with you like that, wasn't I?
That's right.
You were at North High.
North High.
North
Yes,
High
I was.
Mustangs.
Graduated in 66.
Yeah, me too. I was at Cortez, so we were we were the Colts, they were the Mustangs. It really is amazing to be part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, but I can't help to be skeptical. Like when they show up at the ceremonies that night, when we're getting ready to accept our award thing, if they dump buckets of pig blood on us like Carrie, which I would think would be the greatest thing ever. That would be the smartest thing they could ever do. In fact, that's a great idea.
Bring umbrellas.
Yeah. That would actually suit us. It would be very, really. It would be part of our show for them to do that to us. So when did you hear about the nomination? Did Shep call you?
Shep had called Neil. Actually, it was I think maybe almost 4 or 5 days, or a week after I got back from New York when we worked together back there.
Yeah.
And Shep had called Neil, and then he called me, and I was like, "What?" I thought, you must have the wrong number.
Yeah.
I was like, because I hadn't even thought about it really, with Kiss all over the, on every commercial and A&E. I really didn't think they're going to steal our thunder. That'll be it. But I was pinching myself, and I don't think I've stopped yet.
And the funny thing about it is like, I sometimes think it's harder to get nominated. Because once you're nominated, then people see you on the ballot, and then they go, "Oh, I always thought that those guys were in the Hall of Fame." Or in other words, your name suddenly looks different on that ballot. I know when I looked at the ballot, and I went, Neil Diamond. Wasn't he in the Hall of Fame like the first year or something? Because you'd think that Neil Diamond.
I remember you used to do those Sam and Janet evening things.
Yes, right.
Neil.
Right. Oh, he had a great one time. He says he called me at about 3 a.m. Lowest Carmen denominator and those, and he says, Arturo Verces. And I said, who's that? And he says, that's your tour manager in Europe, Arturo Verces. That was very, very good. Yeah, here's a song that Mike and I wrote a long time ago, and it's actually 2 or 3 friends of mine that are in the business said this is their favorite Alice Cooper song. Long way to go. Yeah. For listener Ben in Verona, Wisconsin, he also wanted to know if I had the snake from the wrestling show I did in 1988. That was the honky tonk man Jake Roberts, Jake the Snake. Jake's python Damien was a nasty, horrible little animal that he traded it very rough, and so that snake was mean. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was a snake I didn't want to know anything about. But Mike,
yes sir,
had an equally. You had 2 pets that were really annoying. The monkey.
Oh, the monkey, yes.
The monkey who, when he saw a girl walk in the room, would show his appreciation.
Yes,
we'll just put it that way. And remember the raccoon?
The raccoon, yes, in Pontiac, Michigan, I do, in the garbage.
The raccoon would come in and it would take its own poop and make little black balls and throw it at you.
Play catch.
I'm not kidding you. It would throw poop at you. And I said, Mike, how come every single animal you own is obnoxious?
But wait a minute, you're forgetting little Podgy out in John Philip Law's house, who leave little presents around, and Neil had Rain.
That's right.
So every one of them was obnoxious.
No, you're really right. But the monkey was the one that was just horrible. I got to a point I didn't even want to walk by the cage because the monkey was. I said, "You're so disgusting."
You know what really did it for me? When he started wearing that trench coat and he.
Yes. The great thing about, to me, when we were writing together, in any writing situation, it was always fun to write with Mike because of the fact that there was always a great riff. There was always a great little melody line or just some little quirky thing that really worked. And I would hear that riff and then I would go, oh, I think I got something for that. Or Mike would have something, and it was very easy to write, like a No More Mr. Nice Guy. That song was just fell into place so easily, and Be My Lover fell into place.
I loved how you had some sort of verse or something, and then I'd get like, I'm stumped, and for a second verse or turnaround chorus, and you usually come right in there and boom, knock it out.
It was just, the idea was to keep it simple, and those songs, the power behind. We used to talk about this all the time. We'd listen to Beatles,
yes,
the White Album,
absolutely,
and we would sit there and go, why is that so good? And we finally realized it's because nothing was in the way of the melody.
Absolutely.
And nothing was in the way of the vocal, and it was sometimes very hard to get Glenn to stop playing. Glenn liked to play through everything. And it was sort of when Bob Ezrin came in and said, stop. And all of us like to play a lot. I like to sing through things, and finally Bob just came in and said, all these songs are great, but you've got to quit playing through on top of each other.
Yes.
Because I can't hear Mike's melody and Alice's lyric when there's a guitar noodling over top of it or a drum roll going over it that shouldn't be there. And I think what Bob really taught us was how to simplify songs.
Yes, and the discipline too.
Yeah, it really was a real
that cross-riding stick that whacked us on the knuckles,
side of the head.
Where you got that, Alice?
Yes. From he was a tyrant in the studio. Bob Ezrin was.
Absolutely, but it worked well for us. He was our fifth Beatle.
He really was. I always say he was our George Martin.
Absolutely.
Because he took some good ideas and really put them into a good spot. In fact, the one thing I remember was we're doing 18 and we're doing 18 and we're doing 18, and he kept walking in going, dumb it down. And we're going, what do you mean? And he would go, make it dumber. And we're going, why? Why would you want to make it? We want to be the Yardbirds. And he's going, no. It's called I'm 18, I'm dumb. The music can't be sophisticated. It needs to be these three chords with this dumb bass line, with this dumb guitar.
Layman's terms.
And honestly, we didn't quite understand what he meant by dumb it down until we finally listened to it, and we went, oh, I get it. Now there's nothing in the way of those lyrics. There's nothing in the way of the message.
Exactly.
In other words, it was smart to dumb it down. Okay, stick around for some ELO and Police up next.
School's been out for decades for this man. Back to the artist DJ on radio. Your host with the least, Alice Cooper.
You're back with Mike Bruce from the original Alice Cooper Group, coming to you from the studio where we've been hanging out just like the old days. Of course, we don't have the great Glen Buxton. May he rest in peace, and he can never be replaced.
Glenn was like actually included in the 100 greatest guitar players.
Absolutely.
In Rolling Stone magazine.
Yes.
And I was telling them before that there were moments when Glenn would play a lead that I would turn around and go, what? Where did that come from?
You remember the recording that we did with the tape recorder at the Cheetah, the live Levity Ball?
Yes.
Listen to that, and it's like he would do these lines. It would just kind of float through the thing. It was like a religious experience.
Yeah, he had this Echoplex that he played with all day. In fact, him and Sid Barrett would sit all day they both had Echoplexes, and it was like the craziest space music you've ever heard. But they really actually knew what they were doing. You're right. On Levity Ball, some of the stuff he was playing on that was some of the most amazing stuff.
And feedbacks, boy, he could feedback for like minutes. We would get these two tones going, harmonies together. It was incredible.
He had a Gretsch Tennessean guitar that he finally ended up. What did he end up playing? What was his final guitar?
White Les Paul.
Les Paul. Yeah, custom.
Yeah. The Gretsch, he cut a hole and put a Fender pickup right in the middle of it.
Yeah, he would tell you. It was so funny because he was always noodling with something on his guitar or adding this or doing something, and he always had a cigarette in his mouth, and he was
a character,
truly a character. But he did have his moments where it was, I sat there and I went, geez, I mean, I don't know if anybody knows how good he really is.
I remember the first time I came over to Glenn's house, and he was sitting in there, and he was like doing triplets along with Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, and I was going like, my mouth dropped, and
he would sit there and he would play for me stuff. He would play some, like Jeff's Boogie. He would listen to it and he'd go, "Listen to this," and Beck would play something,
incredible guitar,
and he would go, "Wow." He says that
made it look so easy too.
Yeah,
it looked like he was just fooling around.
Just crazy stuff. Let's get back to the music. Let's play a little Great White, because this stuff, I always thought this band kind of reminded me of Alice Cooper a little bit. Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Well, it's Ian Hunter.
He's hot. He's sexy. He's alive.
You are one funky white boy.
It's Nights with Alice Cooper.
On the radio.
96.1 KLPX.
I'm Alice Cooper here with the original AC Group guitarist Mike Bruce. That was ELO with Fire on High. Today is Jeff Lynne of ELO's 63rd birthday. Jeff, of course, was the mastermind behind ELO. He produced many classic albums for people like George Harrison, Tom Petty, and he was originally in a band. Remember the Move?
Oh yes, yeah.
With Roy Wood.
Message from the Country.
They were really a good band.
Absolutely.
That was the first time I ever saw the Move. We saw them on television, and they had a wall of television sets that they destroyed on television, which I thought was the most theatrical thing I'd ever seen. And I said, "Who is this band?" They said, "It's the Move." And they were a very cool band.
Ron Wood. Was it Ron Wood?
Roy Wood.
Roy Wood. He had a bigger beard than Garcia. It was huge. It was hung.
And the hair out to here. I just saw him in London. He was just in London. And in fact, he wrote one of their biggest Christmas classics of all time. But Jeff Lynne went on to be really the next Beatle.
Yes, he did.
He produced the Beatles.
He was great.
He really had all of that together.
I saw ELO at
Madison Square Garden.
And they had the electric bass fiddle, and I was dancing in the aisles, and I don't dance, and it was a great show.
Well, you don't dance, but everybody should know you are a dancer. You're a dancing fool. I mean, this guy can dance.
Oh, yeah.
We got to take a short break so we can get back for an awesome same-name segment.
It's time for another intermission, but I promise we'll be back shortly. No need to curl up in a fetal position and cry again. It's starting to just get really, really sad. At least you'll cheer back up when Nights with Alice returns. After this, 96.1.
I'm Alice Cooper here with Mike Bruce from the original Alice Cooper Band, and that was The Who with Run, 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 and before that a different song with the same name by JoJo Gunn. Since I got Mike here, I'm going to let him update you about what he's doing musically these days. And, the other day I played Sing Low Sweet Cheerio on the... And, it held up. It actually held up pretty good.
Oh, we were so clever with those song titles, weren't we?
Yeah, Sing Low Sweet Cheerio.
Mr. Misdemeanor. I actually like that song. I play it once in a while on the piano.
That was very Doorsy.
Yes, it was. Very funny.
But Mike, I know that you've done your own writing. You got your own albums. You've got things like, I know everyone in the band has done their own albums and their own stuff. So tell me what you're doing now.
Actually, I've been working on the Dark Side of Love. It's it's the other side of So Happy Together. Sorry, Mark and Howard. It's all the other things that happen to you besides the good things, and it's.
That's a great name for it. That's great. The Dark Side.
So it's a miserable album filled with miserable moments, and I hope you love it.
You may sell it to Lou Reed or the Velvet Underground. But Mike is a master at writing hooks, and if you listen to any of the real top 40 hits that we wrote, Mike was a mastermind behind a lot of those hooks, and when I think of it, they were the simplest things.
Yes.
They were the simplest forms that we were smart enough not to complicate.
Simple like a do.
Yeah. Well, but that's, what we used to say. We listen to the Beatles and go, the hardest thing in the world is to write a simple song. It's easy to write a ballad. It's hard to write a simple rock song.
Yeah. Rock songs are rough.
Yeah, because everything is derivative of everything. So, no matter what you wrote, it was a funny one. There was a tribute to Alice Cooper album where Roger Daltrey sang No More Mr. Nice Guy. And he's sitting there and he sang it and he said, "Oh man," he said, "this song just feels so comfortable." And I said, "Well, it should be. It's Substitute." Because Substitute was a song that it was da da da, Substitute.
It really flowed together.
And I went, welcome to, No More Mr. Nice Guy is that type of song, same kind of open chords, same type of holes, that feels just like that. And he said, "Well, I knew it sounded familiar."
You remember You Drive Me Nervous? That was something about that song I always loved. You know, it was a great rock song.
Oh, that song was, you know, I tell you what, I still think that's a great song to do on stage.
It is, absolutely.
And we got that from our original drummer, John Spear.
Johnny.
Who used to come in and we would, I mean, he used to drive us insane. And to the point where we would go, John, play it like this. John, come on. And finally one day he says, you guys are driving me nervous. And I went, what did you just say? And he says, you're driving me nervous. And I wrote that down. I said, that is real. I looked at Mike. I said, that's really good. I said, whatever that was. So anyways, you're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper here with Mike Bruce. And we do love you all to death.
You're listening to Rock with a rock legend. It's Nights with Alice Cooper.
96.1 K.
There's a special feeling that comes in the evening. And the deeper we get into the PM hours, the more we cherish our leisure time and our record collection. That's why it's nice each night to turn to a trusted friend who knows what lurks in the shadows of the evening and how to serve up the best that rock and roll has to offer. He's the only radio host who glows in the dark. Our buddy, Alice Cooper.
I'm Alice Cooper here with the legendary Steve Hunter, talking to you through invisible airwaves that I still don't understand how I can talk through this and you can all hear me all over the world. You might know Steve from his guitar work on 5 Alice Cooper albums and a few of Lou Reed's more rockin' albums and a little Aerosmith stuff going on there. Steve, Dick Wagner, they had a little thing going on our stage. Probably Steven Tyler still says, every time I see him, he says, how's the dynamic duo? And I say, who's that? And he goes, Hunter and Wagner. He still says you guys are the 2 best American guitar players he's ever heard together.
Well, that's a really nice thing to hear. I'm glad he thinks that.
Yeah. Well, of course, he's drunk most of the time.
Oh, so. Yeah. Well, I guess you got to take that into account.
There are some classic moments, and in fact, some of the greatest guitar work I have ever heard on any of my albums are, when people say, who played that? And I go, that's Steve Hunter. Who played that? That was Steve. Yeah, who played that? That's Wagner and Hunter together. In fact, on the Nightmare Show, there was a guitar duel that goes on for how long? 15 minutes?
It had to be 15 minutes.
At least 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And for guys that were really good players, studio players, to be on a stage and Welcome to My Nightmare in top hats.
Yeah.
I left the stage. I leave the stage and the whole stage is theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, and I said, take it. And here's these 2 guys that worked out these guitar solos back and forth that were just incredible. It was like a guitar duel, like a sword fight.
Yeah. In fact, if you remember right, I had the brilliant idea with Ron.
Yeah.
Remember Ron? I said, Ron, do you have anything like a blood capsule? And he said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So he goes and he makes up a blood capsule, and I didn't tell Dick that I had the blood capsule in my mouth. So we did a run through.
Yeah.
And we had it sort of worked out so that Dick takes a swing at me.
Right.
And I hit the floor.
Right.
And then what I did was when I hit the floor, I bit the blood capsule and it squirted out all over my mouth and everything. I stood up and Dick went white. Oh my God, I really hit him. I'm sorry, man. Oh jeez. And I said, no, it's a blood capsule. And then he got really mad at me.
But I mean, it was like they would stick the guitars in each other's chest.
Yeah.
And play. It was like electrocuting the other guy. But I mean, if you ever get to see this on video, it is absolutely amazing. These 2 guys play. I got a Cooper Closet Classic coming up in just a bit, but now here's an Alice Classic that Steve plays on. Welcome to My Nightmare. That was Detroit with Mitch Ryder covering the Stones' Give Me Shelter. Steve, you must know McCarty, Jim McCarty from that band.
Yeah.
And all those guys. Those guys were sort of the original Detroit band.
They were the original Detroit band, yeah.
That was a really good rock and roll band. I think that MC5 got a lot from Mitch Ryder and Detroit Wheels.
I agree with you. I think so too. Yep.
Yeah, that was. They were always just, when you think about Detroit rock, Mitch was right there.
He was right there, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really, really amazing. Well, if you played guitar on your brother's album, like all these other, email me at Steve at Night. Oh, you got top billing over me here.
Oh,
at Steve at Nights with AliceCooper.com. We got more bands named after cities coming up. Now, Mitch Ryder Detroit Wheels was the original name, and then they became Detroit.
That's right, yeah.
With Mitch Ryder. And a weird thing about Mitch Ryder was, after a while, I think there was a period of time when nothing was going on. He went back to work at General Motors.
That's right. He went back to work somewhere. I didn't know
on the
that.
assembly line.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's a Mitch Ryder. And on weekends he'd go out and do shows for $10,000. You know, but during the week he would go back to work at the factory.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
That's Mitch.
That's just something you have to have in your heart, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
We got Boston coming up right after this.
Someone has to pay for this travesty. Back with more Alice Cooper next. And now a man who once spent $32,000 a year on beer, Alice Cooper.
You are listening to me, Alice Cooper, along with guitarist Steve Hunter. At the time when you were playing with Lou Reed, now was Lou out there then? Was he in his out there place?
Well,
because I've seen him a few times when he was just totally out there.
Yeah, but if I say that, I might get sued, wouldn't I?
No, not at all.
I won't get sued?
No, not at all. Because it can be proven that he was out there.
Oh, okay. Okay, in that case, actually, when I've worked with him back in the 73 or so,
yeah,
it's really funny. We never said much to each other. It was like we didn't hate each other. There was no animosity. No, nothing weird. We just never said much to each other.
Lou is one of the greatest, nicest guys in the world.
He is.
He is really one of the great guys in the world. But there was a time when he was so, I don't know what he was on.
No, I don't either.
But we went up on stage one night. It was me and Robert Fripp.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Dick Wagner and Keith Moon, and did the background singing on Walk on the Wild Side, you know, the black girls part.
Right, yeah.
And he looked right at us and didn't see us.
Yeah.
He just thought, oh, that's my background singers.
Well, see, what scares me is that he may not have been on anything. That's what really scares me.
That is scary.
No. He's a cool guy, and when we did those tours and everything, it was like I hardly ever saw him and I hardly ever talked to him. But then, you know, fast forward 30 years, and I toured with him just a few years ago.
Yeah.
We were like, he's talking and he's funny.
Yeah,
and
he's a whole different guy now.
Yeah. It's really cool.
The weirdest thing about Lou Reed is we used to live at the Chelsea Hotel when he lived there.
Oh,
and, you know,
I love
that was
that
just
place.
the craziest place of all time.
I love that place.
And I saw him, I would say maybe 5 years ago. And the first thing he said was, hey, I keep hitting the ball right. He says to the right. He says, I cannot keep the ball down the middle. And I'm sitting there and I go, well, I got to loosen your right hand. I said, you got to let your right hand go a little bit. And then I went, would we be having this conversation 30 years ago at the Chelsea Hotel? No.
No, I don't think
No, we wouldn't. So,
of course, I have trouble seeing the ball, so there you go.
But the idea of Alice Cooper and Lou Reed and Iggy playing golf together is very weird.
Oh, I'd like to see that, though.
Yeah. Let's get back to the music. Looks like it's time for another great guitarist, Richie Blackmore.
Oh, yeah.
Who, you know, Deep Purple. Everybody we said at some point in their life will be in Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just inevitable. You'll be in Deep. Eric will be in Deep Purple, and everybody
I haven't been in Deep Purple.
You will be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, your time's coming.
Huh.
Here's Smoke on the Water. Hey, that was the Easy Beats with Friday on My Mind, and in the studio with me, guitarist Steve Hunter. And I always ask this with guitar players, because everybody has somebody that was their biggest influence. Everybody was somebody that they just sit there and went, oh my gosh, that guy's the best player. Who was your favorite guitarist?
Oh, man, that's tough.
Or is your favorite guitarist?
The guy who is my favorite guitar player right now is Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
Without question. David Gilmour is a really close second.
Yeah.
But Jeff Beck for sure.
Jeff Beck is amazing. I just saw him at Albert Hall with an orchestra.
Oh,
and
did he do the orchestra thing?
Beyond belief.
Yeah.
It was like him playing a violin, not even a guitar.
I want to smack him and tell him to stop it.
Yeah,
That's
I do
what
too.
I want to do.
And you know, I've always told people, you know, that if you want to see somebody that has gone past guitar, and then came, you know, I mean, he can still play Yardbirds, he can still play rock and roll, whatever it is, but now he could sit there and play with he played Day in the Life.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Beyond belief.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
It's a gem, you know.
And it's gone past rock and roll into another place.
Yeah, it has,
where only he is living.
Yep.
You know. But he still looks the same. He still plays the same. Still got the Telecaster, you know, and things like that. Still, and when he turns the guitar and starts playing, it doesn't matter what it is. You can tell it's him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it's all in the fingers.
He told me that that's exactly what he told me.
Yeah.
I said, why is it that you can take an Epiphone guitar and plug it into a Vox amp and it sounds like the tone that you got in Evil Hearted You?
Yeah.
And he says, it's all in my fingering.
That's right.
It's all in my hands.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
it's amazing. It's just,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think the guy probably has more knowledge about the guitar than just about anybody, but really cool guy.
Yeah, I haven't met him. I met him just briefly 30 some odd years ago when I was playing with Lou. We played the Crystal Palace in London, and he was with Beck Bogert, and I think it's a piece now.
Yeah.
And he was extraordinary. Wagner and I were both saying, let's not go on right away, because let's let him kind of settle down and forget how great that just was, what we heard.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal then, and very sweet, shy kind of guy when I met him. Yeah.
And really a really cool guy, but intimidating.
Yeah,
intimidating. It's a truly intimidating guy. I'll be right back with a live and kicking song just for you, and it might even be from another band featuring Steve Hunter, the Jonas Brothers. I mean, you played with...
No.
Oh, wait a minute. No, you didn't play with them.
No, I didn't play with them. No.
If you really love us, you'll buy everything our sponsors tell you to. More Alice Cooper after this. Now, some live music for a dead audience.
Wonderful. We're gonna really rock and roll tonight.
It's live and kicking on Nights with Alice Cooper.
Okay, live and kicking, Steve Hunter, one of the greatest lead guitar players of all time, is with us tonight, hanging out with the original Alice Cooper band tonight on Nights with Alice Cooper. I chose a live and kicking song because you're on it. It's with Lou Reed, Rock and Roll Animal, you and Dick Wagner on dual guitar. So you guys were kind of like spent a lot of time on the road together.
Yeah.
Between with my band and his band, and, and running around. Yeah. You actually guys probably could have got on your own and toured.
We thought about that. We thought about that. I don't know why it never really gelled. It never really happened. Except in my heart of hearts, I got a feeling that band, that core band with Whitey and Prakash, it worked best when we had a really powerful front man. You know what I mean? Or a really extraordinary front man like you and Lou and these giant personalities. That's when that seemed to me that band worked the best.
Yeah, well, it's, it was, Lou's stuff is definitely, it's a different type, different sound rock. It's maybe moodier, a little darker in places than mine, whereas some of my stuff is borders on pop. I mean, when you take No More Mr. Nice Guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then we would get into the Black Widow and some of the big, darker, heavy stuff. But I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
Where that would be. But I would say a night with Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner would be an interesting night of guitar work.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could still see that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could stand each other. Well,
we won't go into that part of
it. Here's Sweet Jane, Lou Reed. I'm Seeger with Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm here on the air with guitar great Steve Hunter, who's sitting in with the original band tonight. When we realized that Glenn wouldn't be able to be here, what was the very first thing we thought of? Of course, I've been playing with you recently on the new album in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I know Steve Hunter is available because I saw him in Nashville and he's just playing as good as he ever played. So we called him up and he said, oh, yeah, of course, I'll come in and play.
Absolutely.
And you've played these songs a million times. We're doing 18 schools out, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, when you were in Welcome to My Nightmare show, we did those songs every night.
Yep. I think the only one in the set so far I haven't played a lot of is "Be My Lover." That's the only.
Yeah,
one.
that's the simplest one.
So,
So he fits right in with the with the original band, and it was the perfect replacement for Glenn. Well, if you're online right now checking out Detroit Rocks Except for the Lions.com, take a minute and write to me and Steve Hunter at steve@nightswithAliceCooper.com if you want to know anything about Steve Hunter. If you want to know what size underwear he wears, or if you want to know all those personal things that I can't answer because
I don't wear underwear.
I used to know. Oh, by the way, one of the most important things that Steve Hunter stands out as was that there was an ongoing poker game with Flo and Eddie on the $1 Billion Babies tour. I think it was. Was it Nightmare or $1 Billion Babies?
Nightmare. It was Nightmare, yeah.
And that went on forever. Every single day in the plane we would get on, and the game would start up again with real cash, piles of cash. And the one game that I remember more than any other game is we're sitting there and everybody had a hand. I had sitting there with a full house. Flo, Mark had like a straight.
Space had something too.
Space had like a straight or three kings or something like that. So we just kept, it'd come around us and I go, I'll call. And I'll say, and I'll raise you $50. So there's a pile of money there, literally probably $3,000, $3,000 in a pile. And we all put our cards down, and I'm second from last. I go, full house. And I'm looking at the money, salivating, because I know I won that money. and Space goes, 3 kings, darn it. And the last guy is Steve Hunter, and he's sitting there, and he's got his long cigarette holder. We used to call him the deacon, and with his glasses, and he's kind of, and he goes, does that beat a royal flush? And he puts down a royal flush.
Yeah, I do.
The first one I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, me too.
It was in hearts, full, a royal flush in hearts.
Yeah.
And we just stood there for a second and looked at it and applauded. We all stood, gave him a standing ovation while he took all of our money.
Yep, and I had a scotch.
And
I got a little shot of scotch.
He had a shot of scotch because nobody had ever had a royal flush before, ever. I mean, I've never seen one.
No, I've never seen one.
And we had this cards framed and put up on the plane.
Yeah.
Because nobody had ever seen anything like that.
It was great.
So, I mean, that was a very good night for you, Steve.
Yep, it was.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper, and lucky to have one of my favorite guitar players in the entire world, Steve Hunter, tonight. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
When your ears bleed, that's rock. When everything bleeds, that's Nights with Alice Cooper.